Take two. I've just been talking to myself without hitting my live stream button, so we're going to start over again. Hi, I'm Nancy Hoyer Evans, and I am the curriculum coordinator at iPathways. And today I'm going to talk to you about some tricks for teaching writing to a possibly reluctant or new learner of writing. Okay, and sometimes they're reluctant because they just never thought of themselves as being writers, and sometimes it's because they're English language learners and English is not their first language. For whatever reason, they are convinced that they're not writers, that's not for them and they can't be taught, and we're going to show them differently. Okay. In my classrooms, what I do is I take a voyage, and I talk to them about this the first day, from experiential writing to expository writing. That's where we're going to be by the end of the semester. With experiential writing, we're going to start with their own experiences, things that have happened to them that affected them deeply. One of the reasons that I have gleaned in my years as teaching writing is that students feel like they have nothing to say, or that their stories aren't interesting, or their voice is not fully developed, and so they don't feel confident. And we know, if you've ever written anything, that one of the most important elements of good writing is that the writer has to make themselves really vulnerable. They put themselves out there to talk about whatever it is. They're connecting with the human experience, and you stick your neck way out, and a tentative writer is just really reluctant to do that. And I get that. I understand that. So the first thing that I have my students do is I have them brainstorm a list. And usually I do this as a group, but you certainly could do this online with a discussion board of 5 significant things that have happened to them in their lives. And it can be significant good, significant bad, but they make a list of 5, and everybody shares their 5, because what happens when other people share their 5 is it helps you trigger for another writer, oh yeah, I have a story related to that, and it makes their list actually longer as they listen to everybody's 5. So once they have the 5, then I talk about the elements of a narrative. I talk about the shape of it, that you need a good strong introduction to draw your reader in, and then you're going to have a series of events leading to the big moment, the significant event, and then you're going to wrap things up for people. So it has kind of a climbing up the mountain and then falling off the top feeling to it. And as I'm talking about that shape of the narrative, I tell them, these are the things that I'm going to be looking for when I look at your narrative and when you look at your peers' narratives, because I use peer groups. I think it helps them feel more confident to share within a small cohort together, so they're not sharing with the group at large, and it's not just me. Okay, they have more eyes on their papers, they have more people helping them edit, they can share their stories with people who are their peers, and that helps build their confidence in being vulnerable. So these are the things I tell them that I'll be looking for in a narrative. The first is a strong intro. Okay, it's got to be a good hook. We've got to get caught right away into their story. So I want them to think about, are they going to use a time element, like circling back, starting now, and then circling back to the past and bringing back up to now? What is going to be their hook? And they know what a good hook is, even if they don't, if they're unfamiliar with the language. So when they sit down to watch a new series on Netflix or try a movie that somebody else recommended, they look at it, and in the first 5 or 10 minutes, they decide whether or not that's going to be something for them. They've used the principle of the hook, okay? So remind them of that they're aware of it, even if they've never heard that language before, okay? The second thing I want them to look for is showing versus telling. Super important. One of my big 5'7", willowy, with shiny raven black hair and flawless skin and almond-shaped eyes with arched eyebrows, with actually showing us this person instead of just saying she was beautiful. Beautiful could be anything. That doesn't give me a picture in my mind, okay? When we write, what we're doing is we're making word movies, okay? So that our readers can actually see the movie of our story playing out in their heads when they read it. And that seems to connect with students when they think about word movies. I also talk about them creating kind of a virtual reality skin that I can climb inside and walk around and feel what they felt and smell what they smelled and hear what they heard and really have that experience with them. And those are the word choices they should be using. So showing versus telling. And then I give a few more examples of what that looks like. The next quality that I'm going to be looking for are sensory details. And it seems pretty simple, but still a lot of my early writers are unfamiliar with the idea of sensory details, of using all of our senses when we're writing. Not just what you saw, not just what you heard, but everything you touched and tasted and felt and thought and saw and smelled and heard and all of those things. So we go through and we talk about what sensory details might be, and I ask them what examples are, okay? The next quality I'm looking for are action verbs, okay? One of my pet peeves as a teacher, and we teachers have them, is the word get. Get, got, will get, have gotten, any morph of get. And I hate it. And I'll go through it, circle it, and make some frowny faces because it's a wasted opportunity. The verbs are the muscle of our sentences. They really tell us how the writer feels about whatever person or whatever event that's going on. So I don't want to see walk. I want to see what kind of walk. How many words do we have for walk? Find one that's actually closer to what's happening. It will paint better word movies for them, okay? The next quality I'm going to be looking for are no cliches, okay? A lot of times students don't know what cliches are, and they'll say, what's a cliche? And I giggle, and then I say, okay, here are some examples, and they recognize it right away. So we talk about, so hot you can fry an egg on the sidewalk, or smooth as a baby's bottom, and we give a whole list of them. I list them on the board, but you could make a list of some of your least favorite, or the ones that pop up all the time, and you could post it in a warning: do not use these, as these cliches are off limits, however you want to go about it. And I describe it as it's a shortcut that they should not be taking when they're actually trying to become better writers. We don't take shortcuts when we're, trying to really actually become better writers. The next and final thing that I tell them that I'm going to be having them look for in their peers' papers is only one area for improvement. Okay, and why only one? There might be, 3, 4, 5, because it's overwhelming. What has happened is that somebody has essentially, in this, I do this for my class, I actually, go through the birth pangs and birth a baby out of my brain. And I hold on to my little brain baby. And I say, when somebody gives birth to a brain baby, which they've done when they've created a piece of writing or a piece of art or sculpture or design, anything that has come from within them that they're offering to show to you is their brain baby. So they bring their brain baby in and you tell them all the things that are wrong with their brain baby, like 10 or 12 things. Oh, your baby's eyes are ugly, or it has no hair. Where are the ears? Well, how many toes is it supposed to have? No, it's overwhelming, and they feel defensive, and they're not going to learn or be vulnerable to you again the next time. It teaches them to pull in instead of reach out, and we don't want that. So we identify only one area for improvement. And the thing is that if I put them in groups of 4 or 5, usually all 4 of the other people in the group have identified that same one thing. So they know, oh, I have one thing, if I work on it, will be the best for improving my paper. So they don't feel overwhelmed. They feel like it's a task that they can do. So they're not as resistant to that revision process, which is so important to good writing. The other thing to keep in mind when you're talking about area of improvement is this. Psychologists, psychiatrists have said that we need a rate of 5 positive comments for every 1 negative comment. And my personal feeling on it is that it should be like 55 to 1. Because what happens is we're so much more willing to believe the bad things, especially people who've struggled with learning. But we all are. We all feel vulnerable when we create something from scratch. So we are going to be truthful but kind and nurturing in our giving of feedback to our peers, to our students. So once I've told them these are the things I'm going to be looking for, then I read a successful narrative from a previous student aloud to them, and I say, you're going to be listening for these things in this narrative. So they know what to look for, they've got those filters in place, and then they listen to the narrative, and then we go back at the end and identify all of those things in that narrative. And then they're ready to go off and try to create one of their own. Okay. One of the next things that I would say that I find essential in teaching writing is I require my students to keep a journal at any level, from the developmental all the way to tech writing. Everybody's got to keep a journal, because what happens is a lot of people have trouble making the journey from having a thought or feeling to feeling comfortable enough to write it down. Decoding it and putting it in a form that it could be actually consumable by someone else. And that trip is hard. It's a jungle full with weeds and trees and monkeys and snakes. And so if they journal, it's like I give them a machete so they can chop down the underbrush between the path between having the thought and idea or feeling to expressing the thought and idea and feeling. Okay. And if they do that regularly, what is amazing is that it becomes something that they're more confident at. It's like word calisthenics. They do it often enough that it's no big deal to, type up or write up a page of journal about what's going on in their lives. I don't put any limits on what it is that they journal about. They can decide if there's a theme. I've had some people write poetry or short stories or long stories, or they go and they find one little factoid about their favorite pet, whatever, and they tell me that factoid in each page of their journal. It's terrific. The cool thing about it also is that it is a safe place. There's no grading of grammar. There's no grading of punctuation. It is a safe place for them to experiment and flex and try out their word muscles a little bit without there being any negative consequences. The only negative consequences come if they don't do it. The cool thing that I have discovered is that I believe that you must read everything that your student writes, because you're showing them that what you create has value, and it's essential, because they don't feel that they have value when they start. So you have to model that for them all the time. And after the first quarter, I have them turn in their journals, and I stay home and put my feet up for 30 hours or whatever, and I read them all, and I make comments in the margins and ask questions and smiley faces and whatever marginalia on their journals. And when they get them back, they're so flabbergasted, first, that I read them all, and second, that I took the time to actually make individual comments. The next set of journals, the gates are off. They're sharing everything. The journals are longer, they're more detailed, they're more involved. They have seen that their work has value, and now they're much more willing to do it. Okay. And sometimes every now and then they'll write in the middle of it, I wonder if she's really reading this. And I always have to look for those and say, yes, I am. I'm right here. I'm reading it. So it's important. It's an important part of the process. It's labor intensive, but it is a labor of love. The final thing I'll say is that in order to become better writers, we have to keep saying the message. If you want to become a better writer, you need to read, 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 read. You got to build your vocabulary. You got to build your fluency, your familiarity with the syntax. And the more you read, and it's in game, Iowa, whatever, read, read, read. Find something that you love and learn everything there is to know about it. Read all the time, and writing will improve. It's absolutely indisputable. So that's all I have for you. Those are the down and dirty tips and tricks today for working with the reluctant writer. And I hope that you're all safe and happy and at home. Have a great day. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.